First up at 10, as property insurance prices shoot up in Florida, homeowners were calling for change, right? Well, now Democratic candidate for governor David Jolly is responding with a rather bold new idea, but the insurance industry may not like it. Our political editor Craig Patrick explains Jolly's proposal with perspectives from both sides.
I think we need bold, dramatic property insurance reform.
David Jolly claims he can reduce home insurance prices with a new state catastrophic fund. The Democratic candidate for governor's concept is very different from what state leaders have tried, and it draws a combination of interest from some insurance industry analysts.
Absolutely, that would be a good move. It would be good for Florida.
And dismissal from some in the insurance industry.
I just can't come up with one possible positive reason to move forward with this type of proposal. I'm sorry.
Well, to explain Jolly's idea, we need some background on what catastrophic funds or catastrophe funds or CAT funds are, how Jolly's concept differs, and how it compares to the state's broader strategy. Well, first, when home insurance premiums surged a few years ago, state leaders largely blamed the crisis on fraud and abusive lawsuits.
Somehow you have like one shingle off the roof and then some lawyer comes in and then they end up doing this. There's a big lawsuit.
We are just a factory of litigation in the state of Florida, and we have got to change this culture.
So in 2022, they made it harder and financially riskier to sue insurance companies. And to this day, state leaders and consumer advocates differ over the impact of that lawsuit reform. For example, the conservative Republican governor of Louisiana cited it as an example of what not to do.
They tried wholesale reform, tort reform that the insurance company said would lower rates in Florida. And today, policyholders in Florida struggle to get the very claims paid on the policies that they paid for.
And there are other factors that drove up our premiums, like climate change and reinsurance. See, insurance companies have to buy coverage for themselves called reinsurance. And reinsurance factors projected effects of climate change into the prices they charge. And with Florida in the heart of Hurricane Alley, they raised prices significantly. By the way, the smaller an insurance company's reserves, the more reinsurance it has to buy. And as large name brand insurers pulled out of the state of Florida, it left our state with comparatively smaller companies with lower reserves. So they had to buy larger and larger sums of this hiked up reinsurance, and they passed down costs to their customers, the homeowners of Florida.
About 40 cents of every dollar that your property insurance company takes in goes offshore to Bermuda or London to buy that reinsurance.
So, in addition to making it harder to sue, state leaders also offered another $3 billion in cheaper state-backed reinsurance. They set up two programs commonly called CAT funds. That's state money to subsidize the private market, which Republicans said they did reluctantly.
You have to consider things that I, as a conservative, would not wish to do.
And that some Democrats said would not help.
It's corporate welfare. It's only helping the big businesses. And my constituents are not going to feel any relief as a result of it.
Well, most of that $3 billion was never used, possibly due to the conditions of accepting it. And in 2025, the state returned $2.1 billion of it into the general fund. Meanwhile, Florida also has a separate CAT fund that serves a similar purpose, but some companies cannot access much of that money, and here's why. See, insurance companies buy reinsurance in layers or stacks to protect against different levels of loss, low, middle, and high. And Florida's CAT fund helps fill in the middle tier, not the pricey bottom tier. And that's why some call to lower the attachment point, which means let companies access the bottom layer and pass the savings on to consumers.
It would absolutely help to address the problems to lower the attachment point. Now, that's really technical for individuals, but ultimately, that's really what's driving a lot of the insurance costs right now.
Now, there are technical distinctions between a catastrophe fund and a catastrophic fund, but the terms are often used interchangeably in political conversation. And that's a primer on CAT funds as we currently know them. See, when Jolly says catastrophic fund or CAT fund, he means something different, as I found out the first time I heard him say it.
We need a state catastrophic fund to remove hurricane coverage out of the private market. You could cut private insurance by about 60%.
But we have a cat fund. Why not just use that, lower the attachment point so that you can have insurance companies buy more into it and work it that way?
So we have a hurricane fund in the state of Florida that's basically a reinsurance fund. I'm talking about fully removing natural disaster perils from the private market, funding a state catastrophic fund.
Yeah, that sounds like Jolly wants the state to cover all natural disaster damage. Well, private companies would or could cover everything else. And consumer watchdogs and insurance industry analysts have strong and different opinions on that. We'll show you how they score it and how they say it could affect our home insurance bills, all coming up.